Hey everybody, we're back. It feels like forever, but we're back. And if you're a first-time subscriber, first-time listener, first-time watcher, I am Justice. She is Faith.
Hi.
Welcome to the Justice and Faith Show. Thank you for all the support for the people who continue to follow us. For anybody that's new, please go back and check out our past episodes. Once again, we have been producing a little less content overall. I don't know. I'm thinking about weekly again. I don't know. Yeah, it's because I feel like it's been too long. I think people.
I'm fine with going back to weekly.
I think that the people have been missing us. And I need to know. So I need you guys to comment. I need you to like. I need you to subscribe. If we get new subscribers, then it means that people out there that really need this.
Bump up those numbers.
They need this, and then we need you to do that because I don't see enough comments.
Yeah, no.
You understand what I'm saying? That's why we got on red, because we're mad. We're angry today because we don't see enough comments.
Yeah, we're aggressively asking you to like us and follow us in comments.
Well, I'm not asking you to like me. I'm aggressively asking you to subscribe, but you don't have to like me. But what we're saying is, like, we want to keep producing this content. We want to make sure that we're reaching more people. So what you have to say. So if you're watching it, that's great. But we also want to know how you feel about it. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if
that's
you have
why
any,
we're making it. We don't want to make it to just hear ourselves talk all the time. We want to hear what you want to hear. Like we do this for you.
And apparently you're watching it. So if you're watching it and you're just like, oh, that was a good episode, but I want more, because we try to do it in under 30 minutes or something like that. So we leave a little stuff on the cutting room floor. So there might be more to a particular episode that you might want to talk more about or hear more about. We can always circle back and just kind of reestablish some things from a past episode and do it in a future one. We also want to start getting people in on this. We want to start doing we want to see if we can do intro video, live podcasts. Now, a lot of times we end up doing these kind of later at night, so it might not work for everybody. But, we can always meet up, do it pre-recorded, and just kind of get the gist of what a lot of people are saying. I'm going to be, on a few locations talking to people and probably taking some, face-to-face videos, seeing if we can kind of plug them in so we can get some other people's mindset about some of the things that we talk about. So please, 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 if you're taking the time to listen to this, if you're taking the time to check it out, take the time to just say, even if you're just saying, nice job, I like your jacket. Like, your justice, you need to use some more Just for Men on your beard or something like that. Whatever the case may be, we want to hear comments, because whatever we're doing, we want to make sure we're doing it better. And if we're doing something great, we want to keep being consistent about it.
Yes, definitely. Right. So today we are going to talk about a topic that I feel like is definitely something that everybody can relate to in one way or another. So we're going to talk about why am I with you? Why am I with you? Why are we together? Why do I stay with this person right here?
We're not talking about our relationship specifically. We're talking in general.
So this is the question that we are going to ask. Why do people in general stay with the person that they're with? And we've kind of broken it down into 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 little subcategories of why we think are the main reasons people stay together, and we're going to talk about each one.
Right. So before we even get started on that, that's when you look at the title, I want you to really think about it. Why am I with you? So if you're with somebody right now, you turn to them, look at them. They might be asleep right now. I think it's a bad time to stare at people when they're asleep, because a lot of people look, a little bit more angelic. They might have just been a hellraiser a couple hours ago, and now it's just like, oh, like our kids. It's like, you know what? But look at them now. They're so sweet, drooling, and just a couple minutes ago they was ripping up your couch and stuff. But really, ask yourself, why are you with the person that you're with? Because it's going to be a game changer when you start really thinking about the current problems that you have, future problems that you might have, and things of the like. I sneeze.
Bless you.
I'm corona-free though, thank God. All right,
so yeah, like what he said, identifying your why is definitely something that we want to. Hopefully by the end of this, you can maybe be a little bit closer to figuring out your why. Why am I with my significant other? We're talking specifically marriage and spouses, but this can work for long-term relationships as well, just as easily. So our first one is love. So this is an easy one. It's what people say just kind of offhand. They're like, someone might ask, why are you with Justice? And I'm like, oh, because I love him. So it's kind of an easy answer, but it may have been why a lot of people got together in the first place, but over time it might not be your why anymore, like why you're still together. But if it is, that's great. And that should mean if your why is you are still super in love with your significant other, your spouse, then that should mean that you have the ability to talk about things like openly and honestly. Love is a great foundation for any relationship. But the biggest thing with that is a foundation can crumble, foundation can like fall apart if it's not maintained properly. And a lot of times that is the problem with keeping love as your why. Like it has to be cultivated, it has to be continuously maintained and upkept. And that's, if you can do that, that's great. And that's wonderful. And yeah, because love can be fickle. Love can be, I always say love is not just a feeling, but a lot of people think of love as a feeling. Oh, I feel warm and fuzzy and gooey when I think about my spouse, but
I don't think that.
But
that's not how I look at love.
If you're thinking about love in like the realistic way, love is an action. Love is a choice. Like that's kind of how I look at love. It's more of a action and a choice and something that you have to consciously think about doing. Every day when you wake up, you have to choose to love your spouse or your significant other. You have to choose to continue to love them and to continue to cultivate the relationship and the love. What?
Love is an act of an emotional desperation.
Okay, elaborate because
well, that's why they say love hurts. No, but I'm like love hurts. So when we talk about why am I with you, when people talk about like being in love, like love hurts. So when you talk about being able to have one, like this question itself, it's a hard question. If you love somebody, you should be able to have this answer this question. However, if you ask it, it might seem like you don't love them because you're like, well, why is it even a question about why you're with me?
Yeah.
And it's a problem because a lot of people don't really talk about it because love is different.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't love the same. Everybody doesn't love at the same volume. And they don't value love the same. So for me and you, like you talking about warm and gooey and fairy tale-y and stuff like that. Some people have that fairy tale aspect of love. A lot of people have a more stringent view of love. Like for me, love is action. Love is how you respond to certain things. Love is trying to be better and grow for yourself and your significant other every day. Love is, like I said, it's an act of emotional desperation because love is something that you can present to others, but the way that you expect it is not necessarily the way that you give it. It's one of those golden rule-y type of things, but like when people stay with somebody, you always expect like that initial, like that kind of infatuation love that you might feel, that's going to fade. And so then you need to have more foundational love, and that's not something that's necessarily ingrained in us. So you have to really reevaluate the idea of love, and that's not really something that most people do. And when you do, you start looking at it, you might feel like you don't love a person because you don't love them the way that you initially did.
Yeah. And love is this thing, one of the pros about having that as your why is that it's not something that you can fake.
Nope.
Like loving someone, like really loving them is not something that you can fake because the other person is always going to know if you're putting it on. And
no, that's not, no.
What?
Nope. I could fake with the best of them. I could fake it, right? It's observation. You have to know, and that's where the love really comes in. If two people really love each other, you're going to be able to tell. You can then tell. Everybody can't necessarily tell because I've done it.
Okay.
I have done it, and I've been in situations like that.
Okay.
And so you can fake it because everybody doesn't receive love the same way. So for me, love it's one way, and you look at love a certain way. Yeah. We have these talks on a day-to-day basis. I don't have to do as much because the way that you receive my love and you want love is less than what I expect and what I want.
Yeah.
So there's times you don't know that I have a problem or that I'm feeling a certain type of way.
But that doesn't mean you're not. But you don't fake loving me.
No, but it's not about faking. But I could be.
You can fake liking me.
No. It's not as that. But I could be because you're not actively seeing it as me maybe loving you less.
Yeah. Because
you're not looking at that thing. You're not even looking at the. You might say, "Are you okay?" And if I say yes, you're just going, "Okay." But what happens is a lot of times that happens with people, and then they don't do anything further, and then that love just slowly starts to get. Because to me, if I'm not okay, and you look at me, and you should be able to tell that I'm not okay, and you just go about your business and stuff. To me, that looks like you don't love me. That's how I feel.
Right.
That's how I feel because you couldn't do that. If the same thing happened, you acted that same way. My act of love is to put myself at your feet and say, how can I serve you? That's how I want it. That's how I show, and that's how I want to receive love. Okay. And everybody's not like that. So what happens is, like, love is also one of those things that you can't. Everybody doesn't necessarily understand how it works for the other person.
Yeah, that's why there's like a however many platinum selling book about love languages so that people can figure that out.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal. And if people don't really know what their love language is, or you have differing love languages, and that's a very good point you made.
Because the way that I love is not the way that you love.
Yep. So it's like acts of service, acts of time. I don't care about compliments unless I care about my compliments. Like, I don't need to be complimented often, but damn it, if I'm doing something that I think is incredible, I want to hear about. I want to be appreciated, but I don't need to be patted on the back from every level. But acts of service is probably my biggest love language, because it's just like, I'm a person that I want you to do the things that I'm asking you to do, or the things that you should know, because I'm a heart on my sleeve kind of a person. You should kind of know me. I'm really not that complex, but you need more compliments. You need more, just, you're doing great. Keep going. You're doing great. Keep going. And I'm not naturally like that. Yeah, affirmation. So I'm not naturally a person of affirmation. Like, you went to work. You did a good job at work. I'm not clapping. Like, I've always been that way. So it's a struggle, because I'm just like she cleaned up, and I was like watching her clean, and I wanted to say thank you, and I should have anyway. Husbands or boyfriends, whatever you're watching, I should have said thank you anyway, even though in my head I'm just like, you live here too. But I should have still said thank you, because it's an act of service. Because she might have been tired. She might not have felt like it. She might have been like, whatever. She still don't wipe the stove down. But whatever the case may be, I should have still said thank you. But that's something that I'm working on. But because I know her and I love her, I understand those things. So love is one of those that's kind of, it's fickle. There's a lot of pros and cons with it. But the complexity of it is really based off the individual. Some of the pros are some of the cons.
Like, they kind of intermix in that way. But so the next one, one of the big ones is kids. People stay together because they have kids. They might not be in love with each other anymore, but they have a kid and they stay together so that they can raise that kid and not give the kid a unstable environment or whatever. So I'll let you start this one because you have a kid.
Yeah, so I've been in a situation. Actually, it was the first time I was in a situation, because me and my child's mother, we weren't in love. She said she was in love with me and I was a unicorn, but she did not treat me in a way that made sense. So I would ask, like, why are you with me? And why, like, I knew I was with her because we were having a child together. Like, I wasn't, it had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I never wanted to have a child out of wedlock. I didn't want to have a child with somebody who wasn't my spouse. And so I wanted to try to make it work. And that's literally how I framed it. It was like, we're a family now. We got to try to make it work. And she had a child from a previous relationship. So what happened was, I kind of tried to force myself. I don't want to say force myself to love her, because what I did was just try to mold and cultivate myself to fit the relationship, despite the fact that I was not getting my needs met, and ultimately our children weren't. And so when it came down to it, is that it took a few years, but I finally left because I felt like it was the best thing for all of us. My presence was probably good in some areas, but in a lot of areas it wasn't. I was not well. It was the darkest time I've ever had in my life. And it would have just probably got continuously worse. So I had to decide to leave, because when I went, why am I with you? There was no other foundational pieces there for me to stay other than my child. But some people can't, they don't have the wherewithal to do so. Like, that's how I met you, because literally I left and then I met you. Yeah. But it's very difficult, because the first thing that I thought, but I always knew I was going to have my daughter. Like, that's another thing. I knew I was going to have her, and then my child's mother is not a person. She's not fighting me for it. She's not fighting. Like, that was one of the good things about having a child with her. She doesn't fight me about anything. Other people, they might fight you. They might try to make your life a living hell. They might try to, I'm going to say birth control. Lord, what is it called? The payments, child support, and all that kind of stuff. And you don't want to deal with that. Just trying to, like, you live across town, you get summers, you get every other weekend. And, kids play the game, too. And you really got to understand it. So people are just like, I don't want to be the bad parent. I don't want to be the parent that my kid loves less.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, if you're a disciplinarian, you might start being a little bit, more reserved and subdued because you don't want your kid to hate you. Because when they go to mom and they go to dad, everybody's having fun.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, they look at it and they're just like, I don't want to deal with this. So I'd rather just be like, I'll wait till they're 18. It's countless people I've spoken to where they say, I stuck it out. I knew my husband was cheating on me. I knew my spouse was doing this, but I'm sticking it out until my child turns 18 like it's a magic number. It's not a magic number.
Right. And along those lines, kids are intuitive. They know if something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not a good reason to stay because, like, you're building up animosity towards your spouse, and you could potentially, without knowing it, have some sort of, like...
you have animosity towards your children when you stay too.
That's the word I was trying to find. Animosity, or, like, some sort of... Really you just resent them for being there because they're the reason that you're stuck in this loveless or abusive or... like cheating, adulterous marriage.
God forbid the child looks or acts like the other person. That's a definite thing too. Because when you're with the person, it stings a little bit less than if you're separate because it's like it carries on with you, and then you're like, if I got to deal with it anyway, I might as well have stayed there. It's a very daunting one. It's one that's easily understood because I've been there. I just didn't stay very long.
And the other thing that I think is kind of like an obvious one is the kids will grow up and they will move out of the house. So your reason for staying with this person is no longer going to be there.
It has an expiration date.
Right.
And you're probably looking at it 10 years, 12, 14 years down the line.
Right. But then you just wasted, basically, essentially, all of those years of your life where you could have been moving on. You could have been developing, like, a new relationship, or you could have been working on yourself in a less hostile or less negative environment for everyone involved. Because if you're staying for the kid and that's the only reason, and it's like potentially it could be a negative environment for everybody. So
we're going to have to run that point back because you said something. Remember, we're talking, a lot of this is, I'm gearing it towards everybody. You said married people. When we hit that other point, you can't say move on necessarily because that point causes people not to be able to move on.
Well, if you remember when we were talking about this before we started recording, I said another thing, one of the pros for staying for the kids is potentially the ability to work on whatever it is that's the problem.
But that's why I said when people have the expiration date in their head, like if you're a person that's like, I'm not dealing with infidelity, right? I'm going to expose something and say something that's going to make, I don't know why I do this, but typically, people who deal with infidelity, they do it again. It's a thing. I'm not saying it's a thing for me, sharks. But no, what I'm saying is
that's true.
I'm saying is that if you have a 10-year-old and you find out that your spouse was having an affair, not just like if they're messing with multiple people, it's even worse than having a one standard affair. And that might sound crazy, but because it's more when you have a lot of different people that you're going back and forth with, it is a lot more likely it's going to happen. If you have one person, it could be an established relationship, something happened, and then that just kind of moves on from there.
Right.
But if you're like, well, I'm going to stay with them until my kid's 18. Well, they're 10. So for 8 years, you're dealing with this over and over, and it doesn't mean that they stop.
Okay, so So if it's something like that, potentially you're looking at the finish line and you're just waiting for it to come. Yeah. But like, say it's not something that serious.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying another point.
Like life started to happen, you fell like out of like that love feeling with your spouse, and when you think about it, you can't think of any other reason why you're with your spouse. So that's like the main reason. But if there's no other harsh things happening and it's an okay relationship, it's just more like friendship and like roommate type thing, like you're not mad, you're just kind of living with each other and like going through the motions of life, potentially staying together for the kids would be good because it would give you time to potentially
No, you just stay friends.
recultivate.
You typically stay friends.
You could potentially
from my experiences,
relationship with the person.
From my experiences, because if you're saying there's no issues,
especially as they get older and they need you less, then you have more time for your spouse.
You typically don't get that. Once you start getting that back, you can have a great friendship and a great relationship, and still not have romantic feelings for each other.
Okay.
I know plenty of people like that, where it's like they have great relationships with their ex and whatever, but they just don't. So it's like cultivating a relationship romantically, and they try to go back and forth, and they go, we're better parents than we are spouses, we're better friends than we are this. So you know that could be its whole. I don't want to harp on that one anymore. I don't want to get on to the next thing.
So, but the next one is finances.
All right, finances is a huge one because economics in America just look at the economy.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, when it comes down to it, you'll stay with somebody. You might fall in love with somebody and want to be with them, but if you're a person who's just new to the world, or you're a person who lived on your own for a while, and it's like, hey, rent and this kind of stuff, it's nice, and I have to shoulder the burden of everything.
Yeah.
We were talking about having kids. If you're thinking about getting a divorce or separating, and you got to think about like, now I have to get a new place, and God forbid, I have an uncle. And I don't want to say God forbid, but I had an uncle who paid for 2 mortgages. And I remember he worked 3, 4 jobs, and I never quite understood it. And I remember he said he always wanted to make sure his kids had a place to stay. His kids were like in their 30s. But he still did it because that's just what most people don't have the ability to do that, or they don't have the will to want to do that.
Right.
So when you look at finances, it's just kind of like, you don't have to necessarily be rich. But there are certain, situations where somebody's like, I live a super comfortable life and I don't want to change it. That to me is a choice, because living super comfortably is different than saying, you know what, it's a lot easier for us to share expenses, because then it's a choice. Like, you can live super comfortably, probably go get it and do it on your own. If you don't, you might just be a lazy person. But for most people, you don't necessarily, everybody doesn't have a 6-figure income or the ability to do it, because once again, if you have kids too, you have less time. If you have less time, you can't really make more money unless you have a very specific skill set or a very specific thing that you do. So when it comes down to it, economics is one of the biggest reasons why people probably stay together now, after love is going, after the kids are grown, whatever the case may be, because you don't want to be homeless. You don't want to necessarily, downgrading might be one of the things. So you might have a nice big house, live in a nice community, and you might be able to live on your own, but you don't want to downgrade.
Right, yeah.
And you might say, if I stay with this person, I can kind of keep my same standard of living, because I don't want to go back to the city, or I don't want to be in this environment. I don't want to live with my parents. I don't want to do all these things. That frightens people, and they're like, which we said previously, well, we don't hate each other. We're just not really in a place where we're really bonded. Like, I'm not with you for the initial reasons I was with you before, but now I'm with you because it's just comfortable for both of us.
Yeah, definitely. And assuming that we're not talking about like sugar mama, sugar daddy type situations where like, yes, I got with you because you are super rich and I can be a housewife that goes and spends all your money all the time, and you dote on me, like, and that's why I'm not leaving you, because you've got all this money. So assuming that's not who we're talking about, because that doesn't happen very often.
Oh no, it happens. It's just, it doesn't, the realistic nature of it is that I'm most of the relationships that I know are together for, like, so we wouldn't be together for economics. You were doing your own thing before we got together. If I didn't have you, I could still do what I needed to do. It might be a little bit, with scheduling and stuff, but I could still likely pull it off. Yeah. But for some people, they can't pay rent on their own. They can't pay all of their bills, or they can't pay their car note. God forbid you have child, like daycare or something like that. You can't do it all on your own. So economics are a very big thing. So when it comes to like somebody having a lot of money and you're staying with them because you want that kind of lifestyle, that to me comes down to, you care more about a lifestyle than a person. Right. And so you being in a relationship doesn't matter to you anyway. So whatever you have to do to be in that relationship, your foundations are pissed. But why am I with you? Because you're rich, right? Or because you have money. Like there's no other. And usually the people like that, they know that. That's why people with a lot of money, they tend to be a little bit more cold and callous in picking the people that they're with. They like arm candy, or they like a certain type of a person, whether it's somebody,
because at that point you're basically buying.
Yeah, and it's very difficult for them. So you either go, I don't care, I got money to buy your services, or you're with somebody who's kind of more evenly yoked, where you know that that's not probably the reason why they're with you. Yeah. But I was like, if you got a lot of money and you're with somebody and they're just staying at home, especially if they don't cook, clean, nothing. Like there's a few women that I know like that, and they look a certain type of way, but they have nothing to offer at all. Even their looks are a little bit, suspect to me. But I digress. Yeah. But yeah.
So the next one we're going to talk about is convenience, and we're going to kind of put in comfort with that as well. So convenience being, we already kind of touched on it a little bit, having two people take care of the household things and the children, and it's just easier than having one person. So it literally comes down to convenience sometimes.
It kind of convenience kind of goes in with the finances and stuff too. It's more convenient to have two incomes are better than one.
Right.
Two people are better than one.
Yeah.
Two cars. Like if one car breaks down, like there's just convenience typically with having more. But the cons to it, that kind of, when I said two cars, like that could be an inconvenience. Like if you're with somebody whose car, we've had that, where the car is just kind of like, okay, and every time you turn around, you're shuffling money in, or you're doing this, or whatever the case may be. It can become an inconvenience.
Yeah.
Or like, I have a child, and we don't have a child yet, so there are certain, I don't want to call it, but there are certain inconveniences of having a child that if you have a child, you understand what I'm talking about. But there's an inconvenience of having a child sometime where we might want to do something where it's like, I chose to have my child. She didn't choose to have my child. So it could be an inconvenience for her where it's like, well, we can't do something because I have my child. And it's not like an inconvenience where it's like, oh, damn it. But it's like an inconvenience where it's like, dang, if we didn't have this child, but it would be the same thing. It would be more of an inconvenience if we had a child, actually, because we wouldn't have any support.
Right.
But it will be a choice that we made to have the child.
Yeah.
So but the comfort of it is that if she wanted to do something, or I wanted to do something, she could say, babe, I really want to go out, or I really want to do this. You can stay home with the kid, or whatever the case may be. If you're a single mom or single dad, you don't have that luxury, unless you have a support system to be able to do so. So a lot of people stay together for that convenience and just the comfort piece.
Right, and then the comfort also like kind of comes into it, like if you've been with someone for 5, 10, 15 years, you know that person, you know their intricacies, you know their quirks, like,
and they know yours.
And they know yours. You don't have to worry about getting to know a new person, going through all the like awkwardness, because after 10, 15 years, like there's no more awkwardness. Like you know that person, and you don't have to worry about like putting on a show, because sometimes when you're dating for like the first little bit,
never put on no shows.
You're putting forward your best part of yourself.
I am the show.
You're not showing your weaknesses. You're not showing your.
Oh, I did.
You're not showing your like crazy, I should say.
They're not crazy. There's levels.
So that's where the comfort piece comes in. Is like you literally just don't want to go through the hassle of leaving and finding a new person, or if you don't want to leave and do it by yourself, because maybe you don't want a new person and you don't want to leave because you're comfortable.
Comfort is known. The being uncomfortable is the fear of the unknown. So you stay with somebody because you know what you're getting, good or bad. You know what you're getting. If you go out and you try to meet somebody else, it could be a better person, a greater person, but you're taking a risk, and it can make you really uncomfortable because red flag, oh, this is a red flag, like this person didn't accept. It could be the same. You were very comfortable. You were very comfortable in a lot of areas, and I had to make you very uncomfortable. Yeah. And you could deal with it, but you wouldn't always was able to deal with it, because you're like, why am I not I should just be able to just be good enough. I should be able to just be this.
Right.
And if you had stayed in some of the situations you were in, there are certain things that you wouldn't know, you wouldn't be doing, and things like that. But it's a lot easier to stay comfortable and to say, I could just kind of do this and somebody just accepts me. But just in 5, 10 years, that person that's allowing you to be comfortable, you're not going to feel the same way about your comforts, because then you're going to start looking at yourself, be disgusted, and just different things. So comfort is a very big one. So the last one.
The last one is religion.
Religion.
So why are you staying with someone? Religion.
This is mostly for the married people here.
Yes, because if you're not married, there's no religious reason to stay with someone.
There are people who claim religion, and they'll say, Christian, and they'll talk, but it's just kind of like, if you're not married and you can't say you're staying with somebody because of God or anything, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry if you feel bad. No, I'm not, because it's just the truth. If you're a Christian and you're staying and you're in a household with somebody, you're living with somebody, and you're not married, it doesn't matter. Religion does not matter at that point, because there's no union before God. There's none.
Because when we were going through our divorce the first time, like the first time we were married and then we got divorced, because that sounded like we're getting divorced.
Yeah, I know. But when we were going through
but when we were doing it the first time, it was because I didn't want to get divorced because we made a promise in front of God. Like, it wasn't just a promise that we made to each other. It was a promise that we made in front of God, to God. So it was like, that's why for me, divorce wasn't an option. And like, if he didn't push it through, we wouldn't have gotten divorced.
And I didn't want to get divorced because I had started to, my religious, acumen had grown. Especially due to her. But then once we got together and I realized that, religious-wise, she wasn't what I thought she was. When I quoted the Bible and went to it and it didn't really help in our marriage the way that we were, it was the first thing to leave. It was the first thing out of my life to go was religion, and it was quick. So when I look at the situations with people and see, I know why people stay, but I do understand that is when it comes down to it, as a Christian man, now, I guess I'm claiming Christianity again, the most important relationship I have on earth is with my wife. But the most important relationship I have is with God. Well, if my relationship with my wife is not good, I'm not honoring God. That's just how I feel about it. If I'm not honoring God, why am I doing this?
Right.
But if I'm dishonoring God by being married to this person, even if I made a promise to God, but I don't love correctly, I don't leave correctly and stuff, because if you're not getting your needs met, you're not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah. So that was, and I think that's a reason that some people use to stay together is religion. Like, we're married, we made these promises, we're going to stay together, we have to work it out. Like, I think some of the pros for it though would be you might be more willing to seek help. Mm-hmm. Like, you might be more willing to go to some place to get help for your marriage than someone who maybe doesn't believe in Christianity or believe in religion.
You're more likely to try to work on it because that is a good foundational piece. It's a good structural piece because it gives you something to kind of base things on, and you're like, we have to try to make this work. It's not to say that it will work, but you're a lot more likely to say, we'll go to counseling, we'll go to therapy, we'll do whatever it takes to try to make this work because, God brought, a lot of people, God brought us together, so God wouldn't bring us together for no reason, and maybe this is a test, and you kind of go through all of those bells and whistles. So religion is a big reason why a lot of people stay together too. Yeah,
so... Well, we are coming up on our time that we think we just want to cut it off. We don't want to go too long with these because we feel people start to tune out after a while. So with that being said, we really enjoy talking to you guys. Please come back in a couple weeks when we come back. And with that being said,
give us some ideas. We have like 20, 30 topics, but give us some ideas about it. No, I get pissed off because I'm tired of this. I feel like every time and nobody's really giving it. I talk to people about it, but they're not commenting on the actual stuff, which is semi-annoying because I want to see some comments and likes because other people see comments and likes, and everybody can't see our subscription. So the people who talk to me continue to talk to me. People watch this, reach out to her, talk to her more. For people, sponsorships and things like that, keep sending us sponsorships. Keep sending us things to do because we're going to cultivate that and build and grow this. But if we're not getting it, we're not going to build and grow. We're not changing our background, okay? We're not going to keep building and growing this thing, all right? So
until next time,
maintain your justice.
Maintain your justice.
And keep your faith strong.
Keep your faith strong. See? You're supposed to start.
No, I'm not.
Keep your faith strong and maintain justice.
Oh, she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. See, I'm so mad. I'm getting our tagline wrong.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.